All right, so now we've assembled the infinity stones of post-structuralism. There's just one more stone or rock that we need to talk about.
My sons, remember that it is upon the rock of our Redeemer, who is Christ, the Son of God, that ye must build your foundation. That when the devil shall send forth his mighty winds, yea, his shafts in the whirlwind, yea, when all his hail and his mighty storm shall beat upon you, ye shall have no power to drag you down to the gulf of misery and endless woe, because of the rock upon which ye are built, which is a sure foundation, a foundation whereon if men build, they cannot fall.
All right, so the last rock we need is Jesus Christ, who's going to form our foundation, which means that everything we learn or everything we discover, we're going to have to somehow tie back into Christ and his great love for us, okay? The reason why it's important to build a foundation upon Christ is if you build your foundation anywhere else, you're going to realize that we're just floating through space anyway. So you want to stay tied to Jesus Christ no matter what happens so that you can figure out the truth, okay? Because Jesus is the truth.
Round one.
So there's a scene in the 90s Dracula where Dracula can't stand to see himself.
Take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think.
So then he takes it out on the mirror and blames the flaws of humanity.
A foul bowl of men's vanity.
And the reason why this matters is because skeptics often want you to prove every belief that you have. But the truth is every belief system starts with something that can't be proven. I'll let Dr. William Lane Craig tell you about it.
But do you deny that science cannot account for everything?
Yes, I do deny that science...
So what can't it account for?
Well, had you brought that up in the debate, I had a number of examples that I was going to give. I think there are a good number of things that cannot be scientifically proven, but that we're all rational to accept. Let me list 5. Logical and mathematical truths cannot be proven by science. Science presupposes logic and math, so that to try to prove them by science would be arguing in a circle. Metaphysical truths, like there are other minds other than my own, or that the external world is real, or that the past was not created 5 minutes ago with an appearance of age, are rational beliefs that cannot be scientifically proven. Ethical beliefs about statements of value are not accessible by the scientific method. You can't show by science whether the Nazi scientists in the camps did anything evil as opposed to the scientists in Western democracies. Aesthetic judgments, number 4, cannot be accessed by the scientific method because the beautiful, like the good, cannot be scientifically proven. And finally, most remarkably, would be science itself. Science cannot be justified by the scientific method. Science is permeated with unprovable assumptions. For example, in the special theory of relativity, the whole theory hinges on the assumption that the speed of light is constant in a one-way direction between any 2 points A and B. But that strictly cannot be proven. We simply have to assume that in order to hold to the theory.
But you're missing the whole...
So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So we are... none of these beliefs can be scientifically proven, and yet they are accepted by all of us.
So anytime somebody uses one of these arguments, saying that everything has to be proven logically or through science, you know that they're using vampire logic. They're using an argument with no foundation, just like Lehi saw.
I beheld on the other side of the river of water a great and spacious building, and it stood as it were in the air, high above the earth. And it was filled with people, both old and young, both male and female, and their manner of dress was exceedingly fine. And they were in the attitude of mocking and pointing their fingers towards those who had come at and were partaking of the fruit. And after they had partaken of the fruit of the tree, they did cast their eyes about as if they were ashamed because of those that were scoffing at them. And they fell away into forbidden paths and were lost.
Right, and it's common for people using vampire logic to make fun of you for your beliefs. It's common. Just expect it. So now that you know about vampire logic, You can be prepared for it. You can become a vampire hunter.
I take it you're a hunter for hire. Well, answer me. You can talk, can't you?
But if you're skeptical, here are a few other reasons that it's great to start with Jesus Christ as your foundation.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that?
You know that in the same way that you know that George Washington was the first president of the United States, that you know that Adolf Hitler really committed the atrocities he did. It's called historical knowledge.
But those recent events those events you just cited happened much more recently.
Yes.
And are much more well documented
Yes.
than potentially 2,000 years of lost history.
Bingo, correct. But the great news is, in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we have a very, very reliable historical record based on over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, 10,000 manuscripts in the Latin Vulgate, and about 9,800 in Ethiopic, Coptic, Armenian, Syriac, Gothic, and Slavic.
Basically, like they were almost approved and given credibility to in the short term thereafter. And that added a more extensive proof to the story back then.
Essentially, they were like corroborated.
Yeah.
We have so much historical evidence for Jesus that even atheist historians agree that he must have existed.
There is a lot of evidence. I mean, there is so much evidence that it is not, I mean, I know in the crowds you all run around with, it's commonly thought that Jesus did not exist. Let me tell you, once you get outside of your conclave, there's nobody who, I mean, this is not even an issue for scholars of antiquity. It is not an issue for scholars of, there is no scholar in any college or university in the Western world who teaches classics, ancient history, New Testament, early Christianity, any related field who doubts that Jesus existed. Now, that is not evidence. That is not evidence. Just because everybody thinks so doesn't make it evidence. But if you want to know about the theory of evolution versus the theory of creationism, and every scholar in every reputable institution in the world believes in evolution, it may not be evidence, but if you've got a different opinion, you better have a pretty good piece of evidence yourself. The reason for thinking Jesus existed is because he is abundantly attested in early sources. That's why. And I give the details in my book. Early and independent sources indicate that certainly that Jesus existed. One author that we know about knew Jesus' brother and knew Jesus' closest disciple, Peter. He's an eyewitness to both Jesus' closest disciple and his brother. So, I mean, I'm sorry, but again, I respect your disbelief, but if you want to go where the evidence goes, I think that atheists have done themselves a disservice by jumping on the bandwagon of mythicism, because, frankly, it makes you look foolish to the outside world. If that's what you're going to believe, you just look foolish. You are much better off going with historical evidence and arguing historically rather than coming up with the theory that Jesus didn't exist.
So that's just one reason to believe in Jesus. There are many great reasons to believe in Jesus, which we'll get into later. But one thing I love about the Book of Mormon is that if you have a sincere desire to learn about Jesus because you want to follow him, he's going to help you find him so he can bless you and help you make your life the best that it can be and to help others around you. And that's the Book of Mormon, baby.